Donald Trump has spent 6 years stress testing our democracy, our laws, our norms, our sense of decency. And today, 2 years after he left the White House in disgrace after his failed attempt to overturn Joe Biden's presidential victory, he's likely to test us again. Donald Trump is out of power and facing legal and financial peril from which he believes running for public office can shield him. Hence his hasty presidential announcement in November, 3 days before Merrick Garland announced a special prosecutor to investigate him. And so all of this pressure Trump is facing is likely to make him more desperate to recapture his position and our attention with the same flood the zone playbook: lies, hateful rhetoric, undermining democracy in word and deed, as he's been doing at a breakneck pace online in the last few days. A federal judge in Florida called Donald Trump out yesterday for doing just that with the courts, writing, quote, "A continuing pattern of misuse of the courts by Mr. Trump and his lawyers undermines the rule of law, portrays judges as partisans, and diverts resources from those who have suffered actual legal harm. Mr. Trump is a prolific and sophisticated litigant who is repeatedly using courts to seek revenge on political adversaries. He's the mastermind of strategic abuse of the judicial process, and he cannot be seen as a litigant blindly following the advice of a lawyer," end quote. That judge, Donald Middlebrooks, hit Trump and his lawyers with a $1 million sanction for the frivolous lawsuit. And today, Donald Trump quickly withdrew his lawsuit against New York Attorney General Letitia James, whom he accused of using her position to pursue a vendetta against him that happened to be before the same judge. Now, that suit was already expected to fail, as both federal and state courts had already dismissed similar suits filed by Trump against the New York Attorney General. But this is just the latest in a string of losses for Donald Trump. According to New York Times columnist Charles Blow, who'll join us in a moment, quote, "Watching voters reject many of the candidates he endorsed during the midterms and the speakership battle, which ended in Kevin McCarthy ceding so much power that he's essentially a speaker in name only, was another loss for Trump because it exposed the fact that his devotees no longer mindlessly follow his directions." Republican Party officials certainly aren't following him into 2024. After Trump's presidential announcement, the New York Times reports, quote, "The Republican National Committee has asked several major TV networks, including CNN, a Republican boogeyman, to consider sponsoring debates." That's an early sign that the party's making plans for a contested presidential primary. Now, some Republican supporters have already rallied behind other candidates. Wyoming Senator Cynthia Lummis has declared Florida's Ron DeSantis the leader of the party. Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo, and Mike Pence, all of whom served in Donald Trump's administration, are publicly courting speculation about 2024 runs. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell this week called the 2024 presidential election a wide-open race.
Look, let me just say this about the 24 election. It's going to be wide open. There's going to be a lot of competition. And I hope we nominate somebody who can win in 24. And so the voters in the primaries are going to make that decision without any assistance from me. They don't need any advice from me about how to vote. And but I will say it's going to be a wide open race.
So some Republicans, at least, are reading the room on Trump because, according to a recent Quinnipiac poll, Donald Trump's favorability among voters has dropped to its lowest level since March of 2015. Or are some Republicans simply looking at the multitude of legal challenges, criminal investigations by the Department of Justice, by the Fulton County District Attorney's Office in Georgia, civil lawsuits from the January 6th attack on the Capitol, a civil lawsuit from E. Jean Carroll, who's accused him of rape, and doubting he can escape from all of these things? But make no mistake, Donald Trump, though diminished, is still dangerous. He still has outsized influence on the Republican Party because, as Trump has proven, Republican Party officials do not control Republican voters, and certainly not the faction of Republican chaos voters over which he has the greatest influence. He's still willing to wield that influence against whomever he perceives as a threat or an opponent, and the more he feels backed into a corner, the more he seeks to capture the attention of an electorate slowly moving away from him, the more extreme his rhetoric will get. This week alone, Trump has taken to his social media platform to deride the FBI, the Department of Justice, the special counsel Jack Smith as, quote, Trump-hating Marxist thugs. He's begun referring to American intelligence officials as the Gestapo. Think about that. He claims he wants to be the commander-in-chief to lead our national security, and he's calling some of the people he'd be leading Nazis. Today, he released a video saying Democrats are, quote, dropping migrants coming in from prison into the country, and that mass releases of illegal aliens are depleting our social safety net. He tells his followers almost daily that America's top institutions are corrupt and unfairly targeting him. He constantly repeats his lie that the 2020 election was stolen from him, although he spelt it S-T-O-L-L-E-N when he posted it yesterday. Still doing it. He's still lying about the election. He's still stoking racism and fear about immigrants. He's still casting Democrats and investigators and the media and anyone who challenges him or tries to hold him to account as existential enemies. Even though we've seen that it only takes one person, one chaos actor, to take his words seriously and lead to violence. In 2018, Trump stoked similar hysteria when he falsely claimed a migrant caravan of, quote, criminals and gang members was descending on the United States, posing a national security risk. As Adam Serwer of The Atlantic highlighted at the time, some took the claims of the president and his allies seriously. On Saturday, October 27, 2018, a gunman walked into the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh and killed 11 people. The massacre capped off a week of terrorism in which one man mailed bombs to nearly a dozen Trump critics. Another killed 2 black people in a grocery store after failing to force his way into a black church. The Tree of Life shooter criticized Trump for not being racist or anti-Semitic enough. But with respect to the caravan, the shooter merely followed the logic of the president and his allies. He was willing to do whatever was necessary to prevent an invasion of Latinos planned by perfidious Jews, a treasonous attempt to seek the destruction of American society and culture, end quote. On Monday, just this Monday, Solomon Pena, a Republican candidate for New Mexico state office who lost his race during the midterms but has refused to concede and has expressed support for Donald Trump, was arrested for being behind a plot to shoot at the homes of 2 county commissioners and 2 state legislators. One of those Democratic lawmakers, State Senator Linda Lopez, said Pena's actions represent a bigger issue in our country.
What I think Mr. Pena represents is it's a bigger issue that's in our country. You know, with the insurrection that happened on January 6th, I mean, it was on his Twitter feed, exactly, you know, showing off that he was there. There's so much more of threats that have been made to our Secretary of State here in New Mexico and other places across our country. You know, with Governor Whitmer, what was happening with her kidnapping, I think it's something that's much larger than just here in the state of New Mexico. The rhetoric has to stop.
It has to stop. But what happens if it doesn't stop?